Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Love at First Haunt, Haunted Ever After, Book 1 by Carrie Pulkinen, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. God, this place is obnoxious. A sickening feeling informed in Allison Gray's stomach as she walked across the yard toward the mansion. A row of Grecian columns lined the front porch, and the foreboding stone steps leading to the heavy wooden door made her breath catch. Why did she let Tina talk her into another one of these swanky parties? Thoughts of a million places she'd rather be at the moment tumbled through her mind. The antique shop, the movies, curled up in a bed with a good book. Hell, she'd take a pap smear over the torture that awaited inside. But she put on a smile and straightened her spine. She could endure it for her friend for a little while at least. It's gorgeous, and selling it paid my bills for the next 6 months. Tina shook her fingers in her hair, giving it lift, not that it needed any help. Her thick black mane had more body than a packed beach in the summertime. You owe me for this, Allison said. Put it on my tab, Tina laughed and tugged her through the door. The place was as obnoxious on the inside as it was on the outside. Marble floors, a grand staircase, expensive furniture. There was such a thing as having too much money, but hey, at least the guy knew how to throw a party. The mansion was packed. They made the rounds, Tina introducing her to every man she knew, and Allison smiled politely, shook hands, and excused herself from each inviting gaze. They were all the same, rich, handsome, and full of themselves. No thanks. Been there, done that, couldn't afford the t-shirt. As a tall man in black slacks and a blue-gray button-up waltzed into the room, Tina's nails cut into Allison's arm. There's the new owner, Logan Alexander Mitchell. Isn't he scrumptious? Allison glanced at his dark hair and piercing sapphire eyes. His fluid movements and confident posture gave him an air of commanding influence, making her heart rate kick up. He was striking, attractive, but no different than the rest of the high rollers here. She shrugged. He looks like a pretentious asshole to me. Tina crossed her arms. You think all men are pretentious assholes, Allie? That's because they are. Allison smirked and turned to survey the room. She shouldn't judge. Truth be told, she'd come very close to living this lifestyle, but having your life turned upside down by your cheating fiancé had a way of making people bitter. She downed her second glass of champagne, needing something to dull the incessant chatter of emotions blasting her from every corner of the oversized house. Allison was an empath, and though she couldn't hear the thoughts racing through people's minds, she could certainly sense them. Sex and money, that's all anyone thought about at parties like this. She rubbed her arms to wipe away the vibrating energy. Tell me again why you hang out with these people? It's called networking. Every one of these jerks is a potential client. Tina smiled and leaned her shoulder against the wall, crossing her legs at the ankles. And the men are hot. With any luck, I can get a few leads and get laid. She raised her eyebrows, and her gaze followed a tight butt in an Armani suit. Allison laughed. Slut. Tina grinned. Prude. I'm not a prude. I'm picky. I'm sorry if I don't go for the rich prick type. You don't go for any type. Tina winked and strummed her fingers against her arm. Go mingle. Go find some real estate clients and your man of the hour. I'll be fine. Are you sure? She put her hand on Allison's arm. I always drag you to these parties, and I feel like I abandon you halfway through. You do, but it's okay. I'm a big girl. Things are pretty calm here anyway, and I can take care of myself. Go. Love you, Allie. I know. Tina pushed off the wall and slunk into the throng of people, leaving Allison alone with her champagne. She had to grin at her friend as she worked the crowd with her charming smile and quick wit. Tina played the game like a pro, and she had the income to prove it. Allison felt lucky she could pay all of her bills on time, but making a career out of her psychic gift was her choice. She knew she'd never get rich from it, and she was fine with that. Allison pressed her back to the wall and looked at her watch. Only half an hour more and she could duck out. Tina would be fine without her. As she made her way to the bar for another glass of champagne, trying to block out the raging hormone-infested emotions that flooded the room like hot honey, she felt a man watching her. His commanding presence startled her, but she felt something else hiding beneath the testosterone and aftershave. She felt pain, heart-wrenching loneliness. It seemed someone else felt just as out of place at this party as she did. She dared turn to see who this intriguing aura belonged to, and their eyes met. For half a second, the mesmerizing intensity of his gaze held her to the spot. Her breath hitched. Oh, crap. She jerked her head down and picked up her pace. Logan Mitchell. Why would the host of the party be harboring such disturbing emotions? She shook her head. It didn't matter. The last thing she needed was to get caught up in a pointless conversation with a man like him. She was so not his type. Ducking around a corner, she lost him in the crowd, but he didn't leave her thoughts. That pain, that loneliness would follow her. Allison's psychic ability was both a blessing and a curse in that respect. Unless she blocked it out, she always knew what other people were feeling, whether she wanted to or not. And Logan, the man had it all, yet he was empty. What was his story? It doesn't matter. This was her own fault. She allowed it in. She knew better than to let her guard down, especially in a crowded place like this. and now she knew way more about the sexy millionaire than she cared to. Forget the champagne. She needed to go home. She scanned the crowd for Tina, hoping to tell her goodbye before she ducked out the door, but a woman on the stairs drew her attention. Her long white nightgown flowed around her ankles, and she sat with her head in her hands, sobbing. The woman's despair washed over her like a drowning pool. Allison blinked back tears as she approached, trying her damnedest to block out the unwelcome emotions, but they clawed their way deep inside her, tearing at her heart. This place was an empath's nightmare. "Can I help you?" Allison spoke in her softest, most comforting tone. Despite her best efforts to block them out, the woman's emotions overwhelmed her. Betrayal, desperation, sickening depression. What happened to her? Allison couldn't fight the tears as they streamed down her face. "Excuse me, miss?" She wiped her cheeks with her fingertips and choked on a sob, unable to recall the last time another person's emotions had affected her this way. This was Logan's fault. Well, Allison's really, but she'd let her guard down because of him, and now look at her, crying along with a person she'd never met, not even knowing why. "Is there anything I can do to help you?" The woman raised her head and blinked. Then she vanished. Logan Mitchell sighed as he worked his way through the crowd. His first night in the sprawling mansion on Greyhaven Island was supposed to be a happy one. He'd thrown one hell of a party, but his mind kept drifting to places he'd rather not visit. Places he'd moved here to get away from. He shook his head, forcing his thoughts back to the present. His 150 party guests fit easily in the estate. It was way more house than a single guy needed, but he got it for a steal. Why anyone would want to leave such a beautiful, secluded place, he had no idea. This house was one dream he was happy to see come true. Trent clapped him on the shoulder and surveyed the room. "Nice to have your own place again, isn't it?" "Definitely. You can't build equity when you're renting, though. Leaving New York probably got me disowned." "True." He shoved his hands in his pockets. "Screw it. Doesn't matter." It was nice to rub a little salt in his father's wound. There was no way he was going down the path that man had so carefully carved out for him. He was already cursed as it was. "So," Trent flashed a grin and gestured to the guests, "who's the lucky lady who gets to spend the night with Detroit's most eligible bachelor?" Thankful for the change of subject, Logan scanned the crowd. So many beautiful women, and any one of them would think it a privilege to go to bed with him. Just another one-night stand. That was all they'd ever be to him. That was all he could ever be for them. "You know that's going to get old eventually." "How can that get old? Detroit Weekly Magazine named you this year's most eligible bachelor. Not that you needed any help with the ladies before, but come on! Detroit's most eligible bachelor." "It's already annoying." Logan slapped his friend on the back and turned toward a group of women. "A bachelor's all I'll ever be," he grumbled. "You say something?" "No, it was nothing." Nothing but the fact he was destined to lead a lonely life because he couldn't afford to let anyone get close to him. Not when he knew the consequence it would bring. The party was a way to fill the void that haunted him, the emptiness he couldn't escape knowing he could never settle down. Surrounding himself with people helped stave off the nagging loneliness until the party was over. No, he couldn't be alone tonight. "How about her?" Trent nodded toward a brunette in a tight black dress. She'll do. Not good enough. There are plenty of women here. Take your pick. They're all the same. Sex and money. That was what they all wanted from him. He felt it every day of his life. Logan could read people, feel their emotions. It was a gift his father loved to exploit. Already had exploited more than he wanted to think about. Yeah, getting the hell out of New York was the best thing he could have done, and yet it seemed nothing had changed. He looked at the brunette. She was pretty, though it didn't matter what she looked like. All he needed was a warm body to fill his bed and make him feel wanted for a few hours. He stopped and raked a hand through his hair. What had his life come to? He searched the room again, letting the crowd's emotions grate over his skin like sandpaper, but this time he found something different. She was different. Her blonde hair hung in loose waves down to her shoulders, and her fair skin looked like porcelain, fragile, with a sprinkling of freckles across her nose. She wore very little makeup, and her conservative black slacks and turtleneck sweater told him she definitely wasn't there for sex. Probably not the money either. She turned her head and caught his gaze, but then she flitted away. Without thinking twice, he pursued her. Trent caught him by the arm. Her? Seriously, man, you can do better than that. He tried to steer Logan back to the voluptuous brunette he was about to pick up. She's different. There's something... I need to talk to her. Since when do you care about talking? Logan waded through the crowd, trying to catch up to the intriguing women. He followed her toward the bar, then stopped as she made an abrupt turn by the staircase. She didn't see him, didn't know how he was watching when he reached out to read her. Sadness, overwhelming despair. She crept toward the stairs and put her hand on the rail as she bent over. Was she in pain? She was talking to no one. Her hand covered her mouth as she turned. Tears streamed down her face and she ran to the door. Wait! Logan pushed through the mass of people, but it was too late. She was out the door before he could catch up. What the hell? She darted across the front lawn like she couldn't get out of the place fast enough. You all right, man? Trent put his hand on Logan's shoulder. She take off? Yeah, she's gone. No biggie, there's plenty of other fish in this sea, and they're all waiting to be caught by Detroit's most eligible bachelor. Logan shook his head. That's really getting old. Allison fumbled with her keys as she tried to unlock her car. The crisp fall breeze sent shivers cascading down her spine. Her heart raced, and the vapors of her shallow breaths fogged the window as she cursed her remote. With trembling hands, she opened the door and shoved the key in the ignition. Her Toyota looked like a black sheep among the designer cars that took up most of the crescent-shaped driveway. It didn't matter. All that moment, she focused on getting the hell off this island. A ghost. She should have known it was a spirit when the emotions overwhelmed her. She'd been psychic as long as she could remember, and she worked hard to keep her abilities in check. A living person's feelings couldn't consume her like that, not anymore. But something about a ghost not being in a physical body made it nearly impossible for her to block them out. She inhaled deeply to center herself and pulled out her cell phone to send Tina a text. Headed home. Call me tomorrow. Hopefully no one saw her display of emotion, but if they did, her friend would let her know. Tina made it her business to know everything about everyone. As the #1 real estate agent in the Detroit area, she'd sold the Greyhaven mansion to Logan and made a pretty profit, even though it went for next to nothing. If you could call $10 million nothing. With her emotions under control, Allison stomped the gas and sped back to her tiny apartment in the city. Her emotions. What a laugh. She wasn't the one who was so upset. It was that woman, that ghost on the stairs. Allison chuckled. Logan Mitchell got more than he bargained for in that deal. Logan. She had to admit the guy was gorgeous if she was going to judge him on outward appearance alone. At 6.5 feet tall, his broad chest and muscular arms were enough to make women swoon. Thick black lashes fringed his intense crystal blue eyes, and his dark chestnut hair was cut close on the sides and messy chic on top. Inside, to be honest, she didn't know much about him. She never read the newspaper or magazine articles celebrating his latest accomplishments. He was just another rich, arrogant, self-centered jerk like her ex, Mark, was. Like they all were. She didn't want to know him. But what was that frightened loneliness about? The poor guy was screaming for help, and helping people was what Allison did best. But he didn't ask for her assistance. She parked her car and climbed the stairs to her third-floor apartment. Safely inside and away from the constant throbbing of human emotion, she pushed Logan out of her mind and concentrated on her nightly meditation. Lord knew she needed it after that escapade. Logan saw the last of his guests at the door, then turned around to face the next woman he'd never talked to again. She had long brown hair and sleek curves, and she was looking at him with her best come-and-get-me eyes. Her thoughts pounded at him like 20-inch subwoofers on full blast. He couldn't read her mind. It was a feeling he got, like registering another person's emotions. The hot, sticky flow of sex was offset by the sharp trill of excitement that only money could bring. That's all she wanted from him. That's all anyone wanted from him, and it was all he had to give. He sighed and led her upstairs to his bedroom. "But I'm your wife, Alex. Don't you love me anymore?" Blood ran down the woman's face from the nasty gash on her forehead, and her utter despair slammed into him like a Mack truck into a brick wall. Her emotions paralyzed him. He didn't love her. Hell, he had another woman in his arms, and she was the one he loved. "Please, Alex," blood mixed with tears splashed on the marble floor, leaving little pink puddles around her feet. "I'm your wife," she sobbed. Then she climbed on the ledge and hurled herself out the window. "No!" Logan screamed in the darkness. The sheets clung to his skin, wet with sweat, and he slid out from under his date's arm. She rolled onto her side and never opening her eyes. He gazed down at her, racking his brain to remember her name. Nothing. What's my life coming to? He ran his hand through his hair and padded to the bathroom. A good hot shower would help chase the recurring nightmare away. It was more than a dream. He knew that. He felt it. It wasn't the first premonition he'd had, but it was definitely the most fucked up. Only a handful of his dreams ever came true, but as soon as one became recurring, haunting him night after night, it was bound to happen in real life. And this was something he couldn't let happen. He'd never told anyone about his dreams, and he didn't plan to. As long as he stayed single the rest of his life, he'd never have to risk his wife throwing herself out a window. The hot water beat down on his skin, washing away the anxiety from his vision. He scrubbed his face, washed his hair, and then moved down to wash the rest of his body, always in that order. The first night in his new place wasn't supposed to be like this. Hell, it shouldn't never be like this. That was what the woman in his bed was for, to stave off the impending doom that invaded his dreams. The vision only came when he was alone. That was how it had always been. So why the hell did he wake up screaming? The dream felt stronger this time, too, more real than ever before. He felt the faceless woman of his vision like they were right there with him. "Mind if I join you?" The sultry female voice brought him back to reality. She slunk up to the shower wearing Logan's shirt and nothing else, and as she smiled, she dropped the garment to the floor. He cursed under his breath and shut off the water. "I'm done." He yanked a towel off the rack and wrapped it around his waist as he stalked into the bedroom to his dresser. Sweatpants, socks, t-shirt. A good run would clear his head. "Are you going somewhere?" The sting of rejection filled the air as the woman sat on the edge of the bed. His stomach wrenched at what he was about to say. "You're a really nice girl, but I'm not looking for a relationship right now." The words left his lips sounding too rehearsed, like he'd done this 100 times. Maybe he had. He sat on a chair in the corner and laced up his running shoes. "I understand." She slipped her dress and shoes on, stuffing her bra and panties into her purse. Then she strode toward him, kissed him on the cheek, and handed him a business card. "My brother has a startup company if you're looking for an investment. He's brilliant." "Thanks." Logan flicked the card onto the table. "Can you show yourself out?" "Sure." He chuckled and shook his head when the front door clicked shut. Money. No one saw past the facade. No one really knew him, save for a few close friends. Reading people like he could, at least he knew who his friends were. Quitting the family business, moving to Detroit, he'd gotten as far away from his father's life as he could, and yet here he was, right in the middle of it. The parties, the women, the transparent so-called friends. Who was he kidding? He could always see where this train of thought was going, and he wasn't in the mood for a pity party. He slipped on his shirt and headed out the door to run. Always running. The brisk autumn air chilled his lungs as he jogged along a path by the water. His party had been a success. He'd made a few business contacts. Everyone had a good time. Well, almost everyone. His thoughts drifted back to the blonde from the staircase. What could she have been so upset about? And what was a woman like her doing at a party like that? He'd never seen her before, and to say she stood out was an understatement. This woman was different. She wasn't the slightest bit interested in him, and that made her all the more intriguing.